Maomao, a serving girl in the rear palace, dreams of returning home and enjoying some delicious street stall meat skewers. But after being kidnapped and forced into servitude for the imperial family, she knows her chances are slim. Her days are spent doing laundry for the palace's low-ranked consorts, who live in ostentatious rooms on the fringes of the grounds. Although Maomao hates her job, she's grateful for the wages that keep her alive. However, her curiosity and sense of justice will soon lead her to uncover a terrible truth behind the infant deaths within the palace. Maomao overhears gossip about a doctor allegedly visiting two ladies in their rooms. Serving girls speculate that it might be related to a supposed curse, despite the ladies' young ages. In the emperor's palace, there were rumors surrounding the deaths of 3 children born to his consorts. Maomao, a lowly worker, heard gossip about curses and hexes from the women around her. However, she couldn't believe it to be true. Despite this, she was curious about the cause of their deaths and decided to visit one of the consorts' chamber. She discovered a heated argument between the 2 most powerful consorts and their doctor. The doctor had been neglecting one consort's daughter, who was less favored than the other's son. Maomao noticed various signs that indicated the cause of the infant's deaths and the consort's illnesses. She needed something to write on, a new mystery to solve. Jinshi felt uneasy witnessing the unruly behavior of the palace's inhabitants. As a responsible member, he had to restore order. One day, he encountered a girl who walked amongst the commotion unperturbed. Later, the prince passed away, followed by the worsening health of his mother. His half-sister, Princess Lingli, had recovered from the same ailment that afflicted the prince. Jinshi probed the possible differences in their recoveries, leading him to ask Consort Gyokuyu about it. She revealed a cloth with a message, warning of poisonous face powder. Suspicion led him to investigate a particular serving girl's possible involvement in the matter. Maomao learns of the prince's passing and the cause of his death due to the use of expensive white powder by Consort Lihua and her serving women. She warns other consorts, but doubts they will listen. Later, she is summoned to the matron of the serving women's building, where she meets a beautiful eunuch who writes a message for her to stay behind. Maomao, a lowly servant girl, is summoned by the beautiful eunuch Jinshi to meet Consort Gyokuyu. Jinshi somehow discovered that Maomao can read and had delivered a message to the consort, using evidence of the cloth she wore as proof. Maomao is offered a position as a lady-in-waiting to the emperor's favoured consort and leaves behind her former life as a servant. She had finally made it. Jinshi was delighted that the freckled girl he had stumbled upon could help solve his problem. Lady Gyokuyu, the emperor's favoured consort, had been the target of multiple assassination attempts and only had 4 ladies-in-waiting to help her. Gyokuyu was a cautious person who understood the risks of being a favoured consort in a palace full of danger. Jinshi saw an opportunity to offer the freckled girl as an additional lady-in-waiting due to her knowledge of poisons. Meanwhile, Maomao found herself elevated to middle rank as a lady-in-waiting for Consort Gyokuyu. Her new position required her to taste Gyokuyu's food and the baby food for the princess. Maomao experimented with various poisons out of intellectual curiosity, making her an ideal candidate for the dangerous task. She noted that they should be using silverware instead of ceramic plates for tasting due to the fear of poison in the palace. Despite Hongliang's reluctance to use silverware, the eunuch Jinshi had everything under control. Maomao suspected that Jinshi had ordered her to be the food taster, but she kept her cool when Hongliang mentioned it. Hongliang praised her knowledge of poisons and medicine, but Maomao revealed that she was an apothecary before being kidnapped and sold. Despite her anger, Hongliang understood her motivation for hiding her knowledge. Hongliang then pulled a sneaky trick on Maomao, making her drop an expensive carafe and threatening to bill her family. Maomao calmly agreed to deduct the cost from her salary, but Hongliang also gave her hazard pay for being a food taster. Maomao was pleased that nothing would go to her captors and left the room, impressed with Hongliang's manipulation skills. Maomao, the new food taster, was a slim and delicate girl with scars all over her left arm from self-experimentation with poisons and medicines. Despite her cold and reticent nature, people pitied her for the abuse she must have suffered at the hands of her father, who had taught her the ways of medicine and letters to prevent her from being forced into prostitution. However, Maomao's interest in medicines and poisons was genuine, and her self-experimentation was motivated by intellectual curiosity rather than masochism. As the food taster, she faced the risk of being poisoned and had to eat elaborate meals that made her gain weight. One day, the nymph-like eunuch Jinshi and his compatriot visited her chamber to report on the successful subjugation of a barbarian tribe, which had resulted in food poisoning among the warriors and the arrest of the village chieftain suspected of conspiring with the barbarians. Maomao wished she never heard the story, but she couldn't stay silent. Using a rhododendron branch, she explained the presence of poisonous plants in the palace. She hinted at the possibility of soldiers utilizing local materials and suspected that the villagers were punished unjustly. Jinshi pondered over the information, and Maomao hoped he could help in some way. Princess Lingli's arrival prompted Maomao to leave the room. The young, beautiful eunuch Jinshi, whose mere presence made the three ladies-in-waiting blush and fuss, requested that Maomao taste a basket of baozi he had been given. She recognized the aphrodisiac filling and nonchalantly hinted that Jinshi may have a visitor that evening. He and a consort named Gyokuyu then asked Maomao to create a love potion, prompting her to accept the challenge with excitement. Meanwhile, Jinshi was being used as a standard for selecting consorts by the emperor, who controlled his harem like political pawns. Jinshi had calculated a plan involving the chilly apothecary who scorned him, and was left wondering where the outcome of it all would lead. Maomao crafted new medicines and dreamed of creating the ultimate cure-all for anyone and any condition, following in her father's teachings. Maomao's interest has been piqued by Jinshi's story. Although medicinal herbs grow in the palace, she lacks the necessary implements to make proper use of them. She heads to the doctor's room with clean laundry and finds herself surrounded by medicine cabinets. Jinshi and eunuch Gaoshun are also there. Maomao collects ingredients, and the eunuch politely helps her. The indolent doctor does nothing but watch. Maomao needs more cacao seeds, but they aren't readily available. Jinshi suggests trading for them. Jinshi and Maomao were discussing the effectiveness of their latest concoction when Jinshi became overwhelmed by the disastrous scene in front of him. To figure out what went wrong, they must go back a few hours. Maomao was working on a stamina concoction, using cacao powder, milk, butter, and other expensive ingredients. She remembered the one time she had tasted cacao in the form of chocolate. It had affected her greatly, but she was now far more resilient. Maomao prepared the mixture and left some for herself to eat later. But when she returned from running errands, she found that the ladies-in-waiting had eaten the chocolate-covered bread, mistaking it for an afternoon snack. After some chaos, Jinshi joked about trying some, but was warned against it. Gyokuyu suggested making it for the emperor, but wondered if she could handle the effects. Maomao gave Jinshi potent aphrodisiacs in a covered jar with instructions on cautious usage. After he left, Maomao smelled a sweet aroma and noticed a missing piece of bread. She hoped no one would get hurt, but the night was young. Yinghua, a diligent lady-in-waiting, works hard to please her mistress, consort Gyokuyu, who values hard work. When Gyokuyu takes Yinghua and other officials' daughters into the palace, they work hard to make up for those who quit. Yinghua meets a new girl, Maomao, who comes with horrific scars, is knowledgeable about medicine, and is assigned to wash clothes. Rumors circulate about a pale woman who dances through the air, and Maomao hears the gossip too. She heads to the medical office with her completed medicine, passing through gates, moats, and a spreading pine forest. Jinshi, Gyokuyu's confidant and likely lover, chats with Maomao before she enters the medical office, where the doctor who knows little about medicine is grinding something. Maomao gets tea and snacks from him, but thinks confidentiality is a low priority for this physician. Maomao reluctantly agrees to help Jinshi with his query on somnambulism, a disease of the spirit that can't be cured by medicine. Gaoshan picks her up in the middle of the night to investigate the illness. During their conversation, Gaoshan urges Maomao to not think of Jinshi as a worm. Maomao continues to think ill of him, but keeps it to herself. They arrive at the gate on the east side of the palace, and Maomao is tempted to leave and head into the nearby pine forest, but resists and sits down in the garden instead. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears in the light of the half-moon. Gaoshan pointed out a pale woman gracefully dancing on a wall, wearing a beautiful dress and long black hair shimmering like a halo. Her name was Fuyu, a middle-ranked consort soon to be wed as a reward for an official's work. Maomao compared her to a hibiscus under the stars, impressing Gaoshan. It was like a surreal scene from a fantasy tale in the legendary Peach Village. Somnambulism was a mysterious condition that caused one to move around as though awake whilst asleep. Maomao knew of a courtesan who suffered from it, and no medicine could soothe her troubled spirit. The woman scratched the madam when restrained one night, but remembered nothing the next day. Jinshi and Gyokuyu asked about her, but Maomao curtly replied that when discussions of her emancipation ended, so did her wandering. Confiding in Xiaolan, Maomao learned of a spirit haunting the palace and an unwell Princess Fuyu. The princess had not left her room for 2 years, and when given to a military official in marriage, began to manifest the mysterious condition. She did this to ensure the emperor would have no cause to make her his bedfellow. Gyokuyu was left speculating about the story. There are powerful men who don't want a woman to be with anyone else, even if they never cared for her. If the emperor takes Princess Fuyu to his bed, she won't be able to marry, and will face her childhood friend after spending a night with the lusty emperor. Her dance may have been a prayer for her friend's safety. Maomao suspects the emperor's interest in Fuyu and his frequent visits to her. Producing as many children as possible is one of his duties. However, Maomao doesn't want to tell Jinshi, keeping the women involved happy in their ignorance. One mystery remains: how did Fuyu climb the tall wall? Despite her stoic nature, Fuyu looked beautiful while dancing. Maomao wishes love could be bottled as a medicine to make women beautiful. Maomao finds herself in the midst of enemy territory in the Crystal Pavilion, serving Lady Lihua's ladies-in-waiting. When the emperor requests for Maomao to take care of the ailing Lady Lihua, she takes the opportunity to improve her meals and expunge toxins from her body. But with unfriendly gazes and interference from the ladies-in-waiting, Maomao struggles to properly care for Lady Lihua. That is, until she meets the beautiful eunuch Jinshi, who effortlessly clears the way for her to tend to the patient. With a finger on Lady Lihua's face, Maomao can only hope that she can save her before it's too late. Maomao was dissatisfied when she saw no change in the makeup that had been applied to the consort, so she confronted the lady-in-waiting responsible. After a physical altercation, where Maomao hit the lady-in-waiting and applied poison powder to her face, Maomao explained the danger of using the forbidden substance to the ladies-in-waiting. Jinshi observed the situation and commented on the terrifying nature of women. Maomao was left feeling frustrated with herself. Consort Lihua's condition was dire as Maomao took over her care. She had to force-feed the consort and wash her from head to toe. Lihua's ladies-in-waiting were either intimidated by Maomao or fought back, but she persisted to nurse Lihua back to health. With every passing day, Lihua's condition improved, with they feeding her special gruel, meat stock, and mashed fruits. Maomao's stay lasted 2 months, and when she finally left, Lihua had regained her healthy figure. Before leaving, Lihua had a heart-to-heart with Maomao about romance, and Maomao left the prince's consort with newfound confidence in her ample endowment. Maomao wanted to help Lihua, who was her mistress's rival, but she couldn't do much. She whispered some advice to Lihua, which made her blush like an apple. The advice came from an old lady of the night and was very useful for Lihua. After this incident, the emperor stopped visiting the Jade Pavilion as frequently, which made Consort Gyokuyu happy. Maomao was surprised, but the reasons for the emperor's absence are a story for another time. Maomao found some matsutake mushrooms and decided to share them with the doctor and a pale-faced eunuch. While they cooked, the doctor bragged about Maomao's skills, making her uncomfortable. Then the eunuch asked if she could cure a curse he got while taking out the trash. It happened 2 nights ago, and he was now rubbing his inflamed hand pathetically. The protagonist and his subordinates dispose of trash in a pit when he discovers a woman's outfit of high quality, along with wooden writing slips. As he puzzles over its significance, they meet an old man who claims to have been cursed. The protagonist reveals the source of the man's affliction to be a reaction to substances on the wooden slips, which caused the colours in a recent fire. They are interrupted by the appearance of an unwelcome visitor, Jinshi, who claps as if in approval. Maomao and Jinshi arrive at the office of the matron of the serving women. The woman is quickly dismissed at Jinshi's command, leaving Maomao alone with him. She finds Jinshi's beauty almost too perfect and feels uncomfortable being alone with him. Gaoshun replaces the matron, and they discuss how to colour a wooden writing strip. Jinshi seems to be piecing together a puzzle, and Maomao realizes it may be a code. The next day, Maomao receives a pile of woven baskets filled with new uniforms for the garden party, a biannual event attended by the emperor's consorts. All of the consorts, including the upper first rank, will be present. Maomao is wary and feels it could be a bloodbath if they aren't careful. Yinghua helps Maomao with the uniform, adding stuffing to her chest and butt to meet the voluptuous beauty standards. Maomao learns about the upcoming garden party and worries about the long, boring hours it entails. She prepares for the event by sewing pockets in her undergarments and creating ginger candy. Her ideas catch the attention of others, including the emperor's seamstress and chef. While waiting for the party, she practices deferential speech with her leader Hongniang and makes medicine just in case. At the party, the emperor's favorite consort, Gyoukuyu, stuns everyone with her beauty and force of personality. The ladies-in-waiting changed into skirts of light red, symbolizing their service to Consort Gyoukuyu. To mark the occasion, Consort Gyoukuyu bestowed accessories upon them, including a necklace for Maomao. However, the waiting women had other plans and insisted on applying makeup to Maomao's face. Despite her aversion, they eventually discovered that her face was already made up with cosmetics, shedding light on her true appearance. As the party approached, Consort Gyoukuyu and her ladies sat in the gardens with warmth from the stones. Maomao, ever the helpful lady-in-waiting, advised them on how to keep the baby princess comfortable. Jinshi, the emperor's favorite, made rounds to each of the consorts, but stayed with Gyoukuyu for longer than necessary. Gaoshun, Jinshi's servant, found his master's behavior troublesome as he played with the lady's charms like toys. Maomao, who had removed her freckles with makeup, had a tense conversation with Jinshi about avoiding unwanted attention in the streets. He was horrified to learn of her past as a victim of kidnapping. Jinshi expressed regret as the overseer of the rear palace, where women were often obtained through illegal means. Maomao used makeup in the rear palace and pretended she couldn't write. She wasn't sure when to appear with an unfreckled face. Jinshi gave her a man's silver hairstick and left for a banquet. Yinghua and the other ladies wanted it, but Hongniang advised Maomao not to give it away too quickly. Consort Gyoukuyu put the stick in Maomao's hair and suggested she wasn't just a lady-in-waiting anymore. Maomao didn't know what the stick meant. The banquet was held in a grand garden. The emperor and his consorts sat at the head of the table, while the young prince's seat remained empty. The Empress Dowager held the princess and exuded beauty even among the consorts. Maomao shivered in the cold, but the proxy battles between the ladies-in-waiting continued. Maomao's past with a particular lady caused some tension, but she was able to silence her. Yinghua apologized for the rude comments, and Maomao couldn't help but feel hurt. Maomao brushed off the concern from her colleagues, even as they chatted about the latest palace drama. Lishu and Arduo, former consorts of the previous emperor and young prince respectively, had a complicated relationship that made life tricky for everyone involved. The fact that Lishu had been married off at the tender age of 9 only added to the intrigue. Fortunately, Maomao had no time for such petty gossip. She had work to do. Despite her tragic backstory, she was determined to make the most of her new life as a taster in the rear palace. Little did she know, bigger challenges lay ahead. At the banquet, Maomao and Guiyuan visit Princess Lingli, who seems healthy but should not be outside unprotected. The virtuous consort, Lishu, catches Maomao's gaze and seems displeased. Each of the emperor's 4 ladies has a color palette, but Lishu's pink is too close to Gyokuyu's red. Maomao distributes hand warmers and overhears how officials and military men scout for girls using accessories as symbols. A man offers Maomao an ornamental hairstick, but she remains unfazed by his ingratiating smile. The military officer offers Maomao a gift, but she doesn't react as he expected. Eventually, she takes the hairstick, and the man seems pleased. Maomao meets the well-endowed consort Lihua, and they exchange pleasantries. During the banquet, Maomao checks for poison in the wine, and the other tasters follow her lead. She eats the emperor's favorite dish, but notices that it is different from usual. Maomao speculates that there has been a mistake in which consort is receiving which meal. Lishu appears ill after eating her appetizer. The emperor's favorite dish was served, but the food taster and the lady-in-waiting seemed to have trouble with it. Meanwhile, Lihaku was not fond of the elite and the cold outdoor banquet. However, a petite lady-in-waiting amazed everyone by enjoying the food until she suddenly spat it out and declared it was poisoned. Chaos ensued. Maomao is approached by a eunuch named Master Jinshi after she detects poison in a dish at a banquet. Despite feeling fine, Jinshi insists on taking her to the doctor. Maomao reveals she has an emetic, and they decide to bring the virtuous consort, Lady Lishu, with them to clear up a matter. They are forced to go to an unused administrative office due to the crowd at the medical office. Maomao takes an antitoxin and vomits out the contents of her stomach, while Lishu reveals a red rash on her arm, which confirms Maomao's suspicions of poison in the fish course. Lishu couldn't look at Maomao, and Jinshi was not amused. Maomao revealed that some people cannot eat certain things, and that she herself had to avoid buckwheat. Lishu asked how Maomao knew, but Maomao just insisted she sit down. The problem was that Lishu's meal was switched with Lady Gyokuyu's, and Maomao guessed that mackerel and abalone were the culprits that Lishu could not eat. Maomao warned Lishu that this could have been disastrous, and explained everything at length to the lady-in-waiting. Later, Jinshi asked Maomao why she had the consort's food taster come along, and whether Lishu was being deliberately targeted. Maomao left, exhausted by this ordeal. Maomao is back at the Jade Pavilion and is given the utmost care. She is put in a much larger spare room, which is a big step up from her usual dwelling. Maomao is restless and wants to be productive, but feels the need to apply makeup before she goes out. Despite her objections, she is told to rest by Yinghua. Maomao wakes up later and goes to consort Gyokuyu, who is busy with Princess Lingli. Maomao is surprised that her freckles are not a problem for the consort. Gaoshun comes later with a cloth-wrapped package from Master Jinshi, and Maomao uses flour to find fingerprints on the silver bowl. Something goes wrong, causing her to stop abruptly. Maomao admits to Gaoshun that the food taster may have switched the bowls, and the fingerprints on the now dusty dish confirm her suspicions. Gaoshun is surprised at the possible dishonorable actions of the lady-in-waiting, and Maomao notes that the food swap may have been a form of bullying. She believes that the lady-in-waiting was attempting to humiliate consort Lishu by dressing her in gaudy clothes and switching her food. Maomao notes that the food switch may have ultimately saved the consort, as it might have prevented her from ingesting poison. Gaoshun thanks her and intends to inform Jinshi of the situation. Jinshi is bogged down with work and appears visibly agitated, but Gaoshun notices his Qilin hairstick and reminds him to keep it safe. Jinshi returns to work to somehow make time for himself. Maomao is questioned by her friend Xiaolan about the poisoning incident, but Maomao is evasive in her answers. Lihaku, a military officer, is given a hairstick by Maomao and called to the Jade Pavilion to meet her. Maomao requests his help in leaving the rear palace, but Lihaku is skeptical until Maomao offers him connections to the most popular courtesans. Despite his doubts, Lihaku ultimately agrees to help after Maomao reveals she has other options. Lady Gyokyu prepares to leave for 3 days, while her ladies-in-waiting express concern for Maomao's ability to function without her. However, Maomao seems to think she is perfectly capable, despite the others' skepticism. Gyokyu observes the situation with amusement, and Jinshi arrives at the Jade Pavilion just a day after Maomao's departure. Maomao returns to the red light district and reminisces about her time spent with famous courtesans. Despite bringing a large sum of money, she is still unable to afford pairing with the famed Perrin. The owner of the Verdigris house suggests Maomao supply her with young affluent customers instead. Meanwhile, Lihaku eagerly awaits his chance to meet Perrin, and Maomao ponders on how to find suitable customers. Maomao quickly runs off to find her father, unable to resolve her current issue. She takes a side path, leading to the lonely and decrepit red light district, where her small home with a dirt floor resides. Her father, a gentleman with wrinkles, welcomes her and prepares tea. Over dinner, Maomao recounts her adventures as her father listens. She settles into bed, with her father ensuring the fire is stoked. As she falls asleep, her father whispers about the rear palace being calmer. Maomao wakes up to the sound of a rooster and tends to her father's herb garden. She uncovers a box labelled "Hands Off" and peeks inside, only to find strange and elusive ingredients meant for her father's medicinal purposes. Suddenly, a girl bursts through the door and urgently requests for Maomao's help with a dire situation at a nearby brothel. Maomao heads there and discovers a man and woman sprawled on a bed, unconscious and spitting up. She performs life-saving measures with the help of her father's expertise, but finds out that the duo may have been poisoned. While Maomao's father assists with the treatment, the apprentice girl leads Maomao to a room where tea has been prepared. The woman, who seemed to be the madam, apologized for the trouble they caused. Maomao, our main character, noted the difference in hospitality compared to the Verdigris house. They only did their job, though they hoped to get paid. The woman's attention then turned to the next room, and her face darkened. Maomao speculated it might be a case of attempted lover's suicide, which wasn't uncommon in the red light district. She noticed a wheat stalk, used as a straw due to brothel's dislike of lipstick on drinkware, as she thought about the man in the other room. He was well-to-do and charming, but something felt off about his situation. Maomao couldn't shake her suspicion, and investigated the room only to find the servant girl raising a knife over the man. She stopped her, but was stopped from investigating further. The man was a problematic customer with a history of love and leave behavior, who had caused at least one woman's death. It seemed like an unbearable injustice to the little servant girl, who held a grudge against him. Maomao and her father received hush money and went home, but Maomao couldn't shake her suspicion, wondering if the courtesan had poisoned the man. Maomao suspects murder in a case of poisoning and believes the courtesan to be the culprit. She deduces that the courtesan drank from the lower layer of the two-coloured wine using a wheat straw, which allowed her to avoid the poison. The courtesan only drank enough to present a convincing illusion and killed the man with a slow-acting poison in the tobacco. Maomao finds the courtesan alive and humming a children's song despite the poisoning. Maomao realizes the red light district is a garden of sweet poison and decides to head to the Verdigris house to get some hot water. Maomao left home after becoming reacquainted with familiar faces due to her work in the rear palace and the trouble it would cause for Lihaku, who vouched for her. The madam of the Verdigris house is picking the perfect sadist for Maomao's first customer. She returns to the Jade Pavilion and meets a nymph-like man named Jinshi, who appears on edge and toxic. He asks about her visit home and Lihaku. Jinshi is displeased that Maomao relied on Lihaku instead of him. Maomao offers Lihaku the pleasure of a night's dream, and Jinshi shatters a teacup upon hearing this. Gyokyu and Gaoshan laugh while Hongniang smacks Maomao on the head. Jinshi was clearly in a bad mood after his encounter with Maomao, but Gaoshun couldn't spend his time soothing the tantrums of an overgrown child. As Jinshi sluggishly sifted through papers that were piling up on his desk, Gaoshun observed that his workload had increased, yet there were proposals from officials whose ideas would benefit no one but themselves. The day passed swiftly, and just as Gaoshun lit the lamp, a messenger arrived with an urgent situation. Whatever could it be? Consort Gyokyu receives terrible news about the death of bigwig Kunin due to too much alcohol, but Maomao remains unemotional. Jinshi seems troubled and sends Hongliang on an errand while Maomao stays with them. Jinshi gives Maomao the alcohol that caused Kunin's death to examine. Jinshi believes Kunin's death isn't just due to drinking too much. Maomao tastes the alcohol and discovers that there is too much salt in it. She thinks Kunin couldn't taste the saltiness anymore. Having lost his family to plague, Kunin lived for his work and sweet treats. Some illnesses can take away a person's sense of taste due to dietary imbalances or stress. The burden of a repressed spirit can lead to sickness. Maomao doesn't know who salted the wine jugs, but each jug was affected, and she suspects someone played a prank on Conan. Jinshi thanks Maomao for her help and gives her a gourd of alcohol. Maomao reminds Jinshi of his duties while he dreams up a legal proposal to ban wine for those under 21. Maomao gives Jinshi a look of disgust. A report that was requested by Jinshi has finally arrived. It has been 2 months since he instructed to find any serving woman who had sustained burn. The report states that a highly placed woman named Feng Ming, chief lady-in-waiting to the pure consort from the Garnet Pavilion, had sustained a burn. Meanwhile, Maomao is called to attend to a dead body found in the outer moat of the pleasure district. The doctor was quaking in fear when he asks for her help, even though Maomao was calm. Maomao discovers that the woman didn't die by suicide, but was rather murdered. Later, Jinshi questions Maomao about how the woman could have climbed up the wall. After discussing, Maomao suspects that the woman was murdered. Jinshi asks her to have a closer look at the body, but Maomao refuses because of her knowledge that human beings can become medicinal ingredients. Maomao's father warned her that if she ever handled a dead body, she might become a grave robber. Nonetheless, she respected his wishes. Wondering about the most effective poison to die by, Maomao's musings were interrupted by Jinshi's question. Though she assured him that she had no intention of dying, she politely requested that, if she were to be executed someday, it be by poison. Jinshi sighed as he faced with a difficult question. Maomao wondered why he looked so unhappy. Maybe she angered him? She apologized and expressed her readiness for punishment, but Jinshi was confused. Maomao clarified that, as a commoner, she didn't want to contradict a noble. Despite Jinshi's assurance that he wouldn't harm her, Maomao understood that it was solely his decision. Jinshi didn't respond further, leaving Maomao to ponder what was on his mind. Later, Maomao learned that the woman who died was involved in the poisoning incident and the case was closed as a suicide. Tea parties were a necessary evil for the consorts, with discussions limited to makeup and fashion trends. Gyokuyu was a master politician and people reader, able to extract secrets from her fellow consorts. Her home sat at a trade nexus, making her communication skills valuable to her family. The emperor visited Gyokuyu frequently to see their daughter and engage in other business. Xiaolan shared rumors about the pure consort, who was rumored to be losing favor due to her age. Consort Lishu nervously hosted a tea party for Gyokuyu and her ladies-in-waiting, who were envious of the Jade Pavilion's ornaments and furnishings. Lishu's ladies-in-waiting appeared disappointed with the tea selection, but Maomao solved the issue with ginger tea, where they discussed the recent tea party with Consort Lishu. Jinshi seems to be investigating the poisoning that occurred and asks Maomao to help in the Garnet Pavilion. There, she meets Arduo, who lives a practical life and has many possessions. They work hard together, but Maomao can't help but question whether the mastermind behind the poisoning is amongst them. Nonetheless, Maomao appreciates the hard-working atmosphere of Arduo's residence and compares it to the laziness of Consort Lihua's serving women. Powerful loyalty can lead to trouble, such as poisoning. One high official is trying to get his daughter into the rear palace, which could lead to one of the 4 consorts being disenfranchised. Consort Lishu, who is still a young age, could be a logical choice to remove. Maomao can't help but think about honey while cleaning and sees Consort Lishu being watched outside. She reports her findings to Jinshi and suspects Lady Fengming, the chief lady-in-waiting, of communicating with outside parties. Jinshi tries to coerce Maomao into accepting a reward of honey, but she resists his advances. The eunuch was enchanted by Maomao's piercing stare, but she was determined to resist his advances. As he tried to stuff honey into her mouth, Maomao weighed her options. Should she submit or try to escape? In a sudden moment of insight, she realized that poisonous honey would at least be dangerous. Just as the eunuch was about to touch her lips, Consort Gyokuyu and Hongyang intervened, saving Maomao from his grasp. Gaoshun asks for forgiveness on behalf of his master Jinshi, who played a prank on Maomao, but she is unimpressed. They arrive at the Diamond Pavilion, where they meet Consort Lishu, and Maomao questions her about her dislike of honey. Lishu's ladies-in-waiting defend her, but Maomao warns them to take up any issues with Jinshi directly. Maomao also asks Lishu about the chief lady-in-waiting of the Garnet Pavilion, which shocks her. Meanwhile, Gaoshun is worried about Maomao's intentions after her baleful look. In her room, Maomao reads a book procured by Gaoshun and discovers that the current emperor only had 1 consort during his princedom, and that a child had died in infancy 16 years ago, with the court doctor Luomen banished. Maomao thinks of her father, a skilled former palace eunuch. Maomao delivers a letter from Consort Gyokuyu and seeks to speak with Lady Fengming, Arduo's chief lady-in-waiting. Fengming is packing to move out, as Arduo must leave the Garnet Pavilion since she can no longer bear children. Maomao catches on and deduces that Arduo lost her womb during childbirth, and her child died young. She investigates and accuses Fengming of causing the child's death by giving him poisonous honey that she thought was harmless. Fengming tries to cover up her mistake and gets rid of anyone who poses a threat to Arduo's position as the monarch's milk sibling and companion, even if it means killing them. Maomao feels a strange sensation as Fengming offers her anything in exchange for information. Fengming talks about something Lady Arduo said 16 years ago, revealing that she stole Lady Arduo's child. Maomao realizes that Jinshi will find out about her recent interest in the archives, and when he does, Fengming will be punished severely. Maomao tells Fengming that if she can accept her proposition, she can protect Lady Arduo's feelings. Later, Jinshi informs Maomao of the outcome. Fengming committed suicide, and Arduo will be demoted. Maomao tries a poisonous flower and tells Jinshi it's not lethal before licking her lips with a sweet smile. Maomao sneaks out of the Jade Pavilion one sleepless night and wanders around the palace, where promiscuity is rampant, even in the winter chill. She climbs the wall to look at the moon and meets Consort Arduo, who offers her a cup of wine. Arduo laments her time as a consort and the waste of the lives lost for her. Maomao descends the wall and falls on Jinshi, who smells of alcohol and protests being cold and won't let go of her. She tells him to go back to his room. Maomao realizes how drunk Jinshi was the night she fell on him and wonders if she should thank him for catching her. The next day, a crowd gathers to bid farewell to Arduo, who has served as a beloved consort in the palace for a long time. Maomao discovers that Arduo's child may have been switched with the imperial younger brother, a theory she finds ridiculous. Later, she witnesses a comical moment between Consort Lishu and Arduo, where Lishu falls and Arduo helps her up like a loving mother. Jinshi and his aide Gaoshun contemplate a list of names, including Fengming's family and their associates, who are to face total confiscation and punishment. 80 of their girls serve at the rear palace, but Jinshi wonders if they should be discharged. Meanwhile, Maomao hears rumors of a mass dismissal and worries about her own fate. She visits Jinshi and asks about her future, but he shows her the list with her name on it. Although she begs to stay, Jinshi's response is cold, and he offers compensation instead. Meanwhile, Jinshi's brooding over Maomao's departure casts a cloud over the palace. Gao Shun remembers how Jinshi had once suffered over losing a favorite toy, and wonders if Maomao was more to him than a plaything. He thinks of a military officer who may know the girl's family, and suggests that he might be able to help. However, Gao Shun knows that relying on the original source of trouble will only bring more of it. Maomao is forced to attend a high-class banquet with her sisters, all done up in gorgeous clothing and makeup. She is support for the main entertainment, and is tasked with keeping the guests' drinks full. While observing the guests, she sees a young man who looks familiar and turns out to be Jinshi, a eunuch from the palace. They engage in a conversation and Jinshi offers to buy her, which gives Maomao an idea. As soon as she spoke, Maomao felt something touch her lips. It was Jinshi's finger, stained with her red lipstick. He then put the finger to his own lips, leaving a scarlet spot. Though she wanted to scold him, his innocent smile made her unable to. Laughter surrounded them, and even Gao Shun appeared. Days later, a wealthy noble came to the pleasure district, offering money and a rare herb for a young woman of his desire.